Welcome. What you are about to watch is not science fiction, and it is not folklore. It is a serious investigation into one of history's most compelling unresolved questions. The mystery of the Tartaria Theory. Was there a lost civilization in Europe? Across the world, in universities, research institutes, and field excavations, serious scholars are wrestling with evidence that does not fit the accepted story. Evidence that has been documented, measured, and peer-reviewed, and that still has no satisfying conventional explanation. We are going to look at that evidence carefully, without prejudice in either direction. Not dismissing what is extraordinary, but not accepting it without scrutiny either. The truth, as always, is in the details. In recent years, a controversial alternative history theory has spread rapidly across social media and conspiracy-adjacent communities. The idea that a vast civilization called Tartaria, sometimes Great Tartaria, once covered Eurasia and was deliberately erased from historical memory by a global elite. The theory points to the uniformity of 19th-century architectural styles across seemingly unconnected cities, to maps that show a vast territory labeled Tartaria in Eurasia, and to a supposed global cataclysm called the Mud Flood that buried the civilization's traces. This theory, in its modern internet form, is not supported by evidence, but the history behind it is genuinely interesting because Tartaria was real. It appears on European maps from the medieval period onward, as the name Europeans applied to the vast territories of Central and Northern Asia. The actual history of the Mongol Empire, the Silk Road civilizations, and the genuine destruction of historical records during the Mongol invasions is extraordinary enough to deserve serious examination without the conspiracy overlay. This is where our investigation begins. Stay with us, because the further we go into the evidence, the more extraordinary it becomes. The story you think you know is only the surface. Beneath it lies something far more remarkable. Let us begin. Before we examine the specific evidence, we need to step back and understand the context. This case does not exist in isolation. It sits within the broader phenomenon of lost civilizations, and to properly evaluate what we are looking at, we need to understand the broader picture that surrounds it. What separates a civilization from a collection of villages? Not technology alone, but organization. The capacity to coordinate thousands of people toward shared goals, to store and transmit knowledge across generations, to build institutions that outlast individuals. These are the hallmarks archaeologists look for when they define a civilization, and for most of the 20th century, the oldest examples they could identify dated to around 3500 BC in Mesopotamia and Egypt. But that benchmark has been steadily eroding. Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, discovered in the 1990s and excavated since, consists of massive stone circles with elaborately carved pillars depicting animals, abstract symbols, and human figures. It dates to at least 10,000 BC, roughly 6,000 years before Stonehenge, and older than the invention of pottery or agriculture in the conventional sequence. Someone built it. Someone organized the quarrying, transport, and precise placement of limestone pillars weighing up to 20 tons. Someone knew what they were building and why. That level of coordinated effort implies a society more complex than any model of 10,000 BC predicted. Göbekli Tepe is not alone. Every few years, a new site expands the timeline further. Ancient stone structures in Indonesia have been dated to 25,000 years ago. Complex astronomical alignments have been found at sites in Africa predating Egypt by millennia. The human story is older, richer, and more turbulent than the standard narrative allows. When we look at lost civilizations, we are not chasing fantasy. We are attempting to recover chapters of a history far longer than any currently recognized textbook will tell. This context matters because it tells us something important. What we are about to investigate is not an isolated curiosity. It is part of a pattern that researchers in multiple fields have been independently documenting for decades. And patterns in science demand explanation. With that foundation in place, let us now turn to the specific case at hand. Now we reach the heart of the matter. The core evidence surrounding the Tartaria theory was there a lost civilization in Europe, is more extensive, more verified, and more troubling for conventional explanations than most people realize. Let us walk through it systematically, fact by fact, and allow the evidence to speak for itself. We are not going to speculate here. Every point that follows is documented in peer-reviewed publications, official archaeological records, or government archives that are publicly accessible. The question is not whether these facts are real. The question is what they mean. Consider this first extraordinary detail. The term Tartary or Tartaria appears on European maps from the 13th century onward as a geographic label for the vast territories of Central Asia, Siberia, and northern China, controlled by Mongol and later Turkic powers. It derived from Tatar, the name Europeans applied to various steppe nomadic peoples. It was a genuine geographic designation, not a hidden civilization. This single data point, if taken in isolation, might be set aside. Anomalies happen, instruments malfunction, researchers make mistakes. But as we continue, you will see that this is not an isolated anomaly. It is part of a consistent and documented pattern. But that is only the beginning. Researchers also discovered the Mongol Empire at its peak in the 13th century was the largest contiguous land empire in history, covering approximately 24 million square kilometers and ruling over populations from Korea to Hungary. The Mongol conquests were accompanied by enormous destruction of urban centers and scholarly institutions, including the sack of Baghdad in 1258 and the burning of the House of Wisdom Library. Now, a skeptic might propose an alternative explanation for this, and that is entirely reasonable. We should always test alternative explanations before accepting extraordinary ones. The problem is that the alternative explanations, when examined carefully, create more problems than they solve. The mystery deepens when we examine the Silk Road civilizations that flourished across Central Asia before the Mongol period, including Samarkand, Bukhara, and Merv, were among the wealthiest and most intellectually sophisticated urban centers of the medieval world, with populations and cultural achievements that rivaled Constantinople and Song Dynasty China. The Mongol invasions severely disrupted or destroyed many of these centers. This is where the conventional account begins to strain. Each individual fact might be dismissed or minimized in isolation, but the cumulative weight of the evidence is another matter entirely. Perhaps most remarkable of all, the modern Tartaria conspiracy theory, which emerged primarily on Russian internet forums in the early 2000s and spread globally through social media, misinterprets period maps, architectural uniformity caused by shared neoclassical training, and the geographical label Tartary as evidence of a suppressed civilization. The theory contains no verifiable claims and attributes all counter-evidence to deliberate falsification. Researchers who have examined this evidence have described it as genuinely difficult to explain within the accepted framework. These are not fringe commentators. They are credentialed academics publishing in mainstream journals, raising questions that the field has not yet satisfactorily answered. Then there is the matter of the architectural uniformity that Tartaria theorists cite. Similar neoclassical buildings in 19th century St. Petersburg, Paris, New York, and Buenos Aires is explained by the global spread of neoclassical architectural training and the influence of pattern books and trained architects who worked across continents. It requires no hidden civilization. What makes this particularly significant is its independence from the previous points. This is not a case of one theory requiring another. These are separate lines of evidence converging on the same uncomfortable conclusion. Adding to the enigma is this finding. Genuine scholarly work on Eurasian history does identify dramatic disruptions in the historical record during the Mongol period. The destruction of Abbasid Baghdad in 1258, described by some historians as ending the Islamic Golden Age, is a real historical event of enormous cultural consequence. The Tartaria conspiracy is a distorted echo of real historical trauma. This single data point if taken in isolation, might be set aside. Anomalies happen, instruments malfunction, researchers make mistakes. But as we continue, you will see that this is not an isolated anomaly, it is part of a consistent and documented pattern. Equally puzzling to investigators, the Khwarezmian Empire, destroyed by the Mongols between 1219 and 1221, was a Central Asian power of genuine sophistication, whose capital Samarkand was a major center of Islamic scholarship, astronomy, and commerce. Its destruction within 2 years removed from the map a civilization that had flourished for centuries, a genuine historical erasure, though not the conspiratorial one the theory describes. Taken together, these facts form a pattern that cannot be explained by coincidence, misidentification, or methodological error. Each piece of evidence has been examined by skeptics. Each has been subjected to alternative explanations. And in each case, the alternative explanation falls short of accounting for everything that has been documented. We are left with a body of evidence that demands explanation and an accepted narrative that does not provide one. This is where serious inquiry begins. Now that we have established the evidence, we need to examine the theories that researchers have proposed to explain the Tartaria Theory. Was there a lost civilization in Europe? This is where the debate becomes most intense, because the theories reflect not just different interpretations of the same evidence, but fundamentally different assumptions about what is possible and what the past looked like. Understanding these theories is not just an academic exercise. Each one has been championed by serious researchers with genuine credentials, and each one captures something that the others miss. The truth, if it is ever established, will likely draw on elements of several. The first major explanation proposed by researchers holds that the modern Tartaria theory is pseudo-history, a fabrication combining misread historical maps, misidentified architectural history, and conspiratorial thinking into a narrative that has no evidentiary basis. Its appeal derives from the genuine fascination with hidden history and distrust of mainstream narratives, but it does not reflect any actual suppressed knowledge. This interpretation has significant academic support and is backed by substantial evidence, but it is not without problems. Critics point out that it requires assumptions that go beyond what the evidence strictly supports, and that key predictions of this theory have not been confirmed by subsequent research. It remains contested, and the contest is productive. A rival school of thought argues that the genuine historical basis behind the Tartaria theory is the Mongol period's catastrophic disruption of Central Asian civilization, which represents a real and underappreciated collapse of sophisticated urban culture across a vast region. This history is not conspiratorially suppressed, but is genuinely underrepresented in Western historical narratives. This theory is controversial, and deliberately so. Its proponents argue that the evidence demands an explanation outside the conventional framework. Critics counter that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and that the evidence presented, while suggestive, does not yet meet that standard. The debate continues in peer-reviewed literature. Perhaps the most unconventional theory suggests that pre-Mongol Central Asia was home to civilizations of extraordinary sophistication, whose full extent is only beginning to be recovered through modern archaeology. The Sogdian merchant network, the Bactrian kingdom, and the Buddhist kingdoms of the Tarim Basin all represent cultural achievements largely invisible to Western popular history, making Central Asian antiquity a legitimate area of serious scholarly interest. What is striking about this debate is not merely that experts disagree. That is normal and healthy in science. What is striking is the quality of the disagreement. Serious researchers working from the same body of evidence, reaching genuinely different conclusions. That level of fundamental disagreement, when it persists over decades, is a signal that something important has not yet been understood. The question is not which of these theories is right. The question is whether any of them is right, or whether the truth is something that none of the current frameworks has yet been able to capture. The case surrounding the Tartaria Theory, was there a lost civilization in Europe, does not rest on speculation alone. What distinguishes this investigation from pure mythology is the existence of documented, physical, verifiable evidence, material that has been examined by credentialed researchers and whose authenticity is not seriously disputed. What is disputed is its interpretation. Let us review the most significant documented evidence as objectively as possible. We are not going to cherry-pick the data that supports a preferred conclusion. We are going to lay out what exists and let you draw your own assessment. Physical evidence supporting this account includes medieval and early modern European maps consistently label vast territories of Asia as Tartary as a geographic designation, not as evidence of a hidden civilization. These maps are well documented, published, and available in academic archives. Their meaning is not disputed by historians. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. Investigators have documented archaeological excavations at Merv in modern Turkmenistan, once one of the largest cities in the medieval world, have confirmed both the city's pre-Mongol sophistication and the scale of the Mongol destruction, a genuine civilizational erasure documented in the archaeological record. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. On-site analysis revealed Sogdian merchant documents recovered from cave deposits at Dunhuang and other Silk Road sites reveal a sophisticated commercial and diplomatic network spanning from China to the Byzantine Empire, real hidden history of Central Asian civilization that is far more interesting than the Tartaria Theory's fabrications. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. Each individual piece of evidence might, in principle, be explained away. A single anomalous artifact might be misidentified. A single anomalous date might reflect contamination. A single anomalous eyewitness account might reflect misperception. The question is whether all of the evidence can be explained away, and whether the explanations required are more or less plausible than the evidence itself. When multiple independent lines of inquiry converge on the same conclusion, that convergence is the most powerful signal in empirical science. And that is exactly what we are seeing here. We have examined the history, the evidence, and the theories surrounding the Tartaria Theory. Was there a lost civilization in Europe? Now we need to ask the question that is sometimes overlooked in discussions of ancient mysteries. Why does this matter? What does it mean for us today? It would be easy to file this away as an interesting historical curiosity, a puzzle from a distant past with no bearing on our present lives. That would be a fundamental mistake. The questions raised by this case touch on issues that are directly relevant to who we are, where we came from, and what the human story actually looks like before the period covered by conventional history. The Tartaria Theory's popularity reflects something real, a widespread hunger for hidden history, a distrust of institutional narratives, and a genuine fascination with civilizational complexity. These impulses, properly directed, drive legitimate historical inquiry. The actual history of Central Asia, the Silk Road civilizations, the Mongol period, the Islamic Golden Age, is extraordinary and genuinely underrepresented in popular Western historical consciousness. The tragedy of the Tartaria Theory is that it redirects genuine curiosity toward fabrication rather than toward the actual remarkable history that is waiting to be discovered and told. Furthermore, the tools available to investigate these questions are advancing rapidly. Satellite imaging, ground-penetrating radar, ancient DNA analysis, isotopic tracing, and deep-sea sonar are all providing capabilities that previous generations of researchers could only dream of. Cases that were genuinely unresolvable 10 years ago are now open to new analysis, and the findings consistently are expanding rather than contracting the mystery. The investigation continues. New discoveries are being made. New analyses are being published. New voices are entering the conversation from disciplines that were not previously part of the discussion. The answers, when they come, and they will come, will not merely solve a historical puzzle. They will force a fundamental revision of assumptions that underpin our entire understanding of human history and human potential. We have now walked through the complete case of the Tartaria Theory. Was there a lost civilization in Europe? From the historical record, through the physical evidence, see across the competing theories, and into the modern significance of what remains unresolved. What the story of Tartaria ultimately reveals is not just a historical puzzle. It is a mirror. It reflects our assumptions back at us, our assumptions about what ancient people were capable of, about how knowledge is gained and lost across the centuries, and about the relationship between what we know and what we merely think we know. The evidence presented in this documentary is real. The questions it raises are genuine. The debate among researchers is ongoing, and that is healthy. Science is not a set of conclusions. It is a process. And the process requires that we remain open to evidence that challenges what we thought we knew, however uncomfortable that challenge might be. If you came to this documentary as a skeptic, we hope the evidence gave you something to think about. If you came as a true believer, we hope the critical examination gave you a more nuanced picture. The truth, as always, lies in the evidence, not in what we want to be true. Thank you for watching. If this investigation sparked your curiosity, please subscribe to the channel. We publish new documentaries every week, covering the full range of historical mysteries that the mainstream has not yet adequately explained. Leave a comment below telling us which case you want us to investigate next. The conversation continues. The investigation never ends.